Greetings this September 10th, 2017, the eve of Hurricane Irma, as it is pushing its way up through Florida on the West Coast. Glad to report it was going to be on the East Coast not that many days ago, and that's where we are. And we weren't really crazy about seeing her come, but we do what we got to do. We welcome you to the Bible Forum. We're going to spend the next 2 hours together and trust that you are going to learn a little something. Maybe you'll find some things interesting along the way. We've got a lot of issues that we want to discuss. If you get the email, you already know what they are. If you've been to the website, you kind of know what they are. I don't post everything we're going to talk about. And if it runs like it did last week, I had like 8 or 9 of these things. I couldn't believe it when it was all done. My mouth was dry. We're going to do a little bit better tonight. We're not going to get that crazed. I do have a question for you as we begin. The Bible. This is a Bible forum. We talk about the Bible. When you're talking about the Bible, is the Bible the Word of God? Is it a word from God, the Almighty, all-perfect God? Is that Bible inspired? Is it inerrant, without error? Is it infallible? Is it the kind of message that works every time and always? And you say, well, yeah, that's what can you prove it? Could you write to me and prove to me in a very short period of time, maybe 100 words or less, that it is inspired, that it is inerrant, it is infallible? And if you can't do that, then you need to enroll in the Bible Institute of Charleston. And you need to do that today. You need to go to the website, click the link. It'll take you to the Institute in Charleston. That website, and you can look and see the video or the sample, and you can go through all the product and decide. And you need to sign up, and we need to be sending you these lessons. They're not super complex. Now I know some people have said this is more than anything. It's all right. Nobody's going to shoot you. You have the information. That's the important part. And I want you to learn. I want you to know. You're not going to learn it in your church. Rarely are we being taught stuff like this in the church. And yet it's bedrock to all that we are and all that we believe. Think about it. There was an earthquake that struck the southern coast of Mexico, the western coast, this past Friday. Initially, the reports were that 15 people died. An historically massive earthquake, toppling hotels and houses, prompting tsunami waves and power outages. You can go on to YouTube and you can find where it talks about tsunamis and these kinds of things that rush across largely the Pacific Ocean and crash into Hawaii or into Japan or something like that. I mean, it is absolutely amazing what happens when there is an earthquake or there is some sort of a movement, in the Earth's crust and that sort of thing. Or maybe a mountain on the coast collapses into the water and it creates this. They're talking about 150, one of them was 800-foot high wave. And these waves, many of them are running at 150, 200, 300, 400 miles an hour across the Pacific Ocean. And they don't get tired. They crash into these countries that are thousands of miles away. The United States Geological Survey said that a magnitude 8.1 or 8.0 quake hit about 73 miles off the coast or off of the area I can't pronounce the name of the place, in Mexico, along their southern coast. The epicenter was 102 miles west of Tapachula in southern Chiapas state at a depth of about 21 miles. Can you imagine stuff like that? A quake so powerful it sent people fleeing from buildings 650 miles away. President Enrique Peña Nieto said the earthquake is the biggest the country has seen in 100 years. 62 aftershocks followed the quake, and they continue. One of the things that fascinated me was that we didn't hear about this for at least 2 or 3 or 4 days. I forget what it was. It occurred sometime in the middle of last week, but it was almost Friday before we heard about it. And it may just be because communications were out and down. But I thought we had stuff all over the world. We knew. We didn't need somebody in Mexico to pick up the phone and say, oh, by the way, we had a... I thought we knew this stuff, but we weren't told. And it's an interesting thing. For the U.S. of A., Hurricane Irma is rushing its way up through Florida. It has battered the Turks and Caicos Islands, Bahamas, Nassau, Cuba, the Florida Keys. I saw pictures of water 4, 5, 6 feet deep, and it's now moving very quickly toward Tampa, Florida, and up that side. You've seen the pictures. Maybe you've seen the live shots from inside this monster. You need to be praying for these people. We've been praying for the folks in Houston and along the coast of Texas. And now here are the folks in these islands and in Florida. And it's not going to end until it gets up into Georgia. It'll drop off and become a tropical something or other. Sometime in Georgia, it's going to curve and go up even into some parts of Mississippi and Tennessee, Kentucky, that sort of thing. It's going to be around for a while, but it'll peter out. But these folks down in Florida are going through a mess. We have a fellow who is usually in our chat room every Sunday night. He's in there tonight. I guess it hasn't reached you yet, has it, Mac? But maybe before we're done. He's on the East Coast, up in Titusville, up in that area, and probably is going to get a lot of wind and some water and that sort of thing, but not the full brunt of it. They're hunkered down. Got the horse in the barn and got the dogs under control. I don't know about the wife, but the dog's under control, and we get through that and be interested to see how that works out. You guys up in Wilmington, North Carolina, I really thought you guys were going to get it, that we were going to get it in Charleston, and it was going to get you guys, but it made a left turn, hung out down there, and we kind of missed it a little bit. But keep them in mind as the week unfolds. I want to share some of the stuff that's in the news this week. The Arab and Israeli media outlets are reporting that Israeli planes, military aircraft, bombed a sensitive Syrian army site in Syria, a site that they believed was a facility for manufacturing chemical weapons. The Syrian army claims that 2 of its soldiers were killed in the strike, and of course they're warning that there's going to be serious consequences. There have been a variety of responses across the social media, with some of the users wondering at the silence from the Russians. The Russians have anti-aircraft batteries, equipment, whatever, in Syria. And as these Israeli planes came in and did their dastardly deed, the Russian air defense systems were quiet. They did not repel the Israeli airstrike. A Syrian journalist and activist wrote that this particular place that was bombed is 70 kilometers from a Russian base. But the Russian air defense missiles didn't do anything to defend against these attacks. At the same time, the Israeli military is in the midst of its largest military exercise in nearly 20 years, focusing on a potential war with Hezbollah. This exercise is being held in the north of the country of Israel. It's roughly a 2-week drill. It's been dubbed the Light of Grain. That's the name they've given it. And it comes amid rising tension along the Lebanese-Israeli border, where Hezbollah and Lebanese political party and militia have maintained a presence for decades. But more and more of these radicals are coming into Syria and into Lebanon, and they're becoming a major force to be reckoned with. Israel is planning. They really believe that these people are going to make a push against the Golan, and they're going to be ready for it. Pray for Israel. Pray for these crazy people who want to have the world in an uproar and kill people every chance they get. In the world's preparation for the return of the Lord Jesus Christ, biblical predictions continue to become reality. We've talked about some of these in the last years. Every once in a while, a new technology, something comes along that is reminiscent of what the Bible has taught for years about end times scenarios. Well, now diners in a Kentucky Fried Chicken store in eastern China, a city called Hangzhou, are going to have a new way to pay for their meal. They can walk up to the counter, they can order their chicken, and when the chicken comes, all they have to do is smile. Customers will be able to use a new program called Smile to Pay, which is really facial recognition software. It is a health-focused concept store. It's part of something called the Yum China Holdings. They're very tech-savvy, and the goal is to lure younger people into the store, that they would spend their money, and they are putting technology in to do that. China is the world's second largest economy, where food safety scares people. And changing consumer tastes have dented sales ever since 2012. But this particular chain is still the largest fast food chain in the market. It has over 7,685 outlets. And so here you have people just walking by, their faces being scanned at an ordering kiosk. Put in a phone number. That's the guard against people cheating the system. A director of biometric identification technology over there said, combined with a 3D camera and the liveness detection algorithm, Smile to Pay can effectively block spoofing attempts using other people's photos or video recordings to ensure account safety. This came from a website entitled or called prophecynewswatch.com. It's just more of end times scenarios. The Bible talks about 2,000 years ago. It talks about this kind of thing, what we now know as computerized transactions on whatever level. And we've talked in the past about the various techniques and things that are going on. This is a new iteration. It's interesting. Since 1989, Denmark has pledged to take 500 refugees a year, refugees selected by the United Nations to be resettled in their country, in Denmark. The program is separate from the EU efforts to distribute migrants among member states, which in recent months and years has encountered fierce opposition. Countries, including Hungary, are not happy. But now, Denmark has stood up And they have said we will not allow any refugees into the country this year under this United Nations program. And we will seek flexibility in determining how many people may resettle in the future. Instead of a set quota, the Ministry of Immigration and Integration is going to take control of this, and they're going to decide for themselves week to week, month to year, all the rest of it. It's just amazing how sentiments change regarding immigration. 10 years ago, the whole idea was Europe needed more workers. And with the European Union struggling as it was, they were opening the door and letting people in. And all of a sudden, there was this big push coming out of the Middle East, and all of these Arabs were running away from the fighting and so forth, and walking into Europe. Of course, they found out later that a large percentage of these were young, unmarried, single guys. And now these countries in Europe are overrun by Islamic, what's the term, the nice term? People who are migrating, Islamic migrants, and they're realizing what the dangers are. A little slow on the uptake, but they got it. And I think we're going to see more of this as time goes on. We're struggling with it here. We've got a president that just says, no, we're not going to open the door and let everybody in that wants to come. He's being called all kinds of names by the leftists, but he is trying to get us back to the policy of immigration that we have had for 250 years. There have been years and years and years we didn't let anybody in. We don't have to do this. And Europe has found out that in doing it, their crime rate has gone up, their welfare rolls have swelled, they don't have any place to put these people. These people wander around, many of them, causing all kinds of problems, and they're saying, I think maybe this was a bad idea. Some of us could have told you that, and did.